Hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning across the world. This is Dr Bhaskar Bora, and today we're going to speak to Dr Merry Baruah, who is a associate professor in Cotton University in Guwahati, Assam. And more importantly, she is a very good friend of mine and an educationalist in Assam. And she's also a poet and an author. And I have been privileged to co-author a book, an anthology of poems with her. So we're going to talk today a little bit about her journey as to how she became a professor and a poet and a writer and a superwoman, and also going to talk a little bit about life in general and creative writing, a few things which we will continue in the next part of this series. This is just the part one. So thank you, Mary, for your time, for joining this conversation. So I'd like to start off by asking you to give a brief introduction about yourself, please.
How should I introduce myself? I am a teacher by profession. I am a mother to two children, and uh, yeah, and I have a family. I am a daughter. I have other responsibilities as a social being. That is it. Nothing much.
So that itself is quite a lot, isn't it? For one person to have so many roles and to be able to do all these roles uh, so well. So that in itself is a great achievement, I feel. So tell us a bit more about your career, your teaching career, or your career as a student, how you progress towards this.
Okay, so I thought I was destined to become a teacher, if not at a university, maybe at a play school, because I never imagined doing anything else besides becoming a teacher. Somewhere I had to be teaching. So it's like that. And it happened that I could clear certain exams, whatever was required for me to be a part of the higher education system. And that is how it went on. And it has been now 20 years almost that I am a part of Cotton University now, which was earlier known as Cotton College. It is an institution which is more than 100 years old. And I had been a student there. I am a faculty there. So I feel it is a grace of God that I'm been able to be a part of my alma mater now. And that is how it is. And in my free time, I actually loved reading a lot, but nowadays I don't get time to read. That might be an excuse, but yeah, I wish I could have more time to myself as career seems to be growing in the sense because it's almost 20 years now. So there are other responsibilities besides teaching that all of us need to look into. And because of that, at times the other things which I had loved doing took a back seat. Uh, yeah, and I'm waiting for my retirement so that I can again retrieve all of that and get back to my original form. Yeah, not physically, of course.
Now, I'm sure that will happen with time. You're looking for retirement. I'm already retired, so I'm one step ahead. So uh, I know you are a very, very modest person,
No,
and
no.
knowing you over the years, but I think the world also needs to know your struggles and your challenges of completing PhD from an esteemed student, esteemed organization. When you had a baby to look after,
Hmm.
as well as your family and everything. So I think that in all is a very inspirational story. And
That is, I suppose, yeah, I'll interrupt. That is because for women, early career stage somehow it coincides with their early married life and having a baby and their career. Three things come together more often to women. And
absolutely,
I suppose women across the world would be, juggling amongst all of these, and they are constantly under pressure to perform well in all of these, which itself is a big challenge. And because they choose to take a career, they are somehow, because traditionally, conventionally trained to be a mother, a wife, their ideas and their minds and their thought processes are disciplined into thinking that it is the primary thing of their life. So career becomes a secondary issue, and at workplace she needs to perform. And then if somebody is into academics, then a PhD is a must in a higher education system. So all of these were challenging for me, but I believe it is actually challenging for women across the world who are in such situations. And you need a very good family support system. You need a very congenial work environment. I suppose I was lucky that way because I joined my alma mater, and I found most of the colleagues who were in the department were my teachers, who had provided me with all, facilitated the process of my, taking my PhD work forward. At home, I had my parents to look after my children, and that way things went on. And yeah, there were moments of, I suppose it is depression, perhaps it was depression, but thankfully I could overcome that. And yeah, I feel that I have matured more now. Things that would have worried me then no longer makes me anxious now. So that way it is, experience has trained me, rather, maybe, to see life in a more sort of good congenial manner. Earlier I thought it was very difficult. Now I think that one can actually find some way to deal with uh, challenges that life throws at one.
absolutely, very wise words. And I think men are generally probably a bit more privileged that they don't have to maybe juggle as much. Although,
Mm.
I mean, we should not be generalizing anything because all individual stories are different. But
Mm.
by definition, as you said, women have to, because they are expected to raise a family, get married at a certain age, especially in our Indian society,
Mm.
and you still want to fulfill your ambitions. So juggling all this is a huge thing. And
Mm.
so before going further, I just wanted to ask, what would be your advice to women who are going through the stage that you went through 15 years ago
Mm.
or 20 years ago? What would you suggest to them?
Actually, my advice wouldn't mean a lot because everyone's individual context would be very different.
But from
Personal,
general principles, I mean, how
yeah,
could they optimize?
yeah, that can be done. Like, one has to sort of, to strike a balance. It is very, very difficult. There would be times where you might end up being a very sort of aggressive person because you have your priorities. You need to complete an assignment. At the same time, you have to also get ready for your festivities that are, ensuing. So, what do you choose? And you would end up becoming very bitter person that way. So these things you need to like prioritize. How do you sort of kind of resolve things? For women it becomes important that you think about what is important for you, what at the end of the day what matters most to you. There might be times where one might need to give up things which for other women might seem very important. For me, it may not be important. So personalized, you have some sort of personal perspective, on individual perspective on resolving your crisis, on facing problems. But what one can do is to not get sort of too anxious and too troubled by the problems that come along, because life cannot be always, a bed of roses that we had done earlier in our school days. We used to write amplifications. Life is not a bed of roses. Yeah, it is not a bed of roses. So you need to keep that in mind. So maybe if there is a colleague of mine who had attained say PhD in 3 years because she could devote a lot of time, it's okay if I do it in 6 years, because nevertheless I end up doing that, because there were other things which are important to me. So I had to, sort of balance all of that. It cannot be a competition with the other person, actually. It is competition with one's own self, how you go through the crisis. Competing with others would make one very unhappy that way. And that is what makes people very stressed. It makes people anxious. So, personally, I take one day at one time. And this I have been doing more often now, that today, whatever I had, I need to complete. If I had 10 work in the early morning, if I know that I had to accomplish 10 tasks, at the end of the day, I know that I have done 5 out of 10. Good. Tomorrow, I'll again follow it up, instead of, becoming very bitter that I couldn't complete my list, because the other time had been taken up maybe by my daughter or my son or something else, maybe cooking something that made the other people happy. So it's okay. At times things do not work according to our plan, but then one must have that ability to accept. That acceptance is very important. I personally, I don't have any competition with anybody, and maybe that way it helps me, because I'm not affected by what is happening outside in the market, what is in trend, what is in fashion, and that is how I carry on. I do my work, and I feel that if I have given 100% to whatever I am doing, that makes me happy. It's fine. Some days might be dark, gloomy. Some days it's happy. That is how it
I
is.
think just within a very few lines, you have given a full management lesson. I think you covered almost the entire
Labeling, I
syllabus
don't
of
know.
personal management. You
Yeah.
mentioned about acceptance, you mentioned
Mm,
about prioritization, you mentioned
mm,
about competing with yourself to be a better person than what you were yesterday, than being
mm,
competing with someone else. You also mentioned about the fact that, I mean, sometimes it can happen that we can feel depressed, we can be down.
mm.
But the glory is not in never falling, but the glory is in actually falling and rising up again.
I see. Yeah, of
That
course.
is that is the most important thing. And you
Mm,
yourself have seen the ups and downs, and you know that those things have now made you a stronger person, more
mm,
matured than what you were. So all of these are things that if we can follow in our lives, it can make our life much more blissful, or
mm,
at least it will make us less troubled.
mm.
We do not necessarily have to always wear the latest trending branded
Yeah.
clothes, or,
Mm,
or have the branded accessories to make us the best person in the
mm,
society. But what is more important is to have a more trending thought, a more trending mindset. So this is all these things that you have said, I think, is really inspirational. And I hope whoever watches this video and this interview will understand the deeper meaning behind all these things. So besides everything else that you have been doing, and I know you do uh, more way more than way above what you are paid for in the university. I mean, you take a lot of part in co-curricular activities, in student welfare, and all sorts of things. And besides that, you also take part in lots of charity activities as well. But on top of that, you are also a poet, a writer, a translator, and you have now recently become involved in this organization called Aspire Academy, which is a social enterprise for teaching underprivileged children. So, how are you doing all that, and why do you do all that?
Uh, I did not have any planned sort of thing. I don't know, like there is a part in me which, you know, continuously propels me to take up things which I have never done. Translation happened because a teacher of mine had asked me to, help somebody else with translating certain things. So, because my teacher had asked me to do, I agreed. And that is how I entered into translation. Then I thought I could do it for fiction and non-fiction or something like that. And that is how it went on. Sort of, that was it. Then again, if there is an opportunity where I feel that I might be of some help, I would like to help. Uh, I guess there are many people who do that. Across the world, there are people who are doing. And because I am in the, teaching profession for now more than two decades now, I had been actually teaching since I did my HSLC. I used to take tuitions also because there were children who would come, and so after my college, that would give me pocket money also, and that is how teaching was a part of my existence. So I thought when I came to know about Aspire, I thought because it was taking into consideration the fact that underprivileged children need to be taken care of specially, and that it is not an outrightly commercial venture. And maybe because I was a teacher, I thought I could be, productively or in a, I would be able to contribute towards its growth. That is how I came to be associated. And because it was a part of my, I thought at one point of time, maybe I would need to get back into those kind of activities. All the time, people cannot live just by earning money and satisfying one's own desires and wishes and gaining in material worth and assets. Maybe there it can be a priority for someone else, but personally, I don't feel life is just meant for the consumption purposes. So that way, I thought I should get, if there's a chance, I may start working for it so that by the time I retire, I would have a full-fledged, organization where I can devote my time and, feel at least being a productive component of the society. That is how I thought I should join Aspire, and more so because a friend of mine who are a part of it. And there are young teachers who are trying to make their entry foray into the world of teaching. And all of these people, young people who are also a part of this enterprise because they want to help the society in not in terms of material gain, but also providing the society with some sort of very very positive contribution. That is how we all have ended up becoming a part of Aspire.
And I'm really grateful that you have, because it is a dream project, and as you said, it's not really just commercial. We just need the commercial aspect for the sustainability, but we hope that this is something we can take forward and make a positive difference to the society. and also be a big post-retirement venture. Now, we have had the privilege of working together across different time zones. And not only did we write and share poems, but we also actually went on publishing a book, which has been critically acclaimed by many people. Now, people say that in order to become really creative or become an artist or a poet, whatever, you have to go through pain. Now, pain means different things for different people, but I suppose we have gone through different kinds of pain, and we have tried our best to put them in words, uh, words which have come out from the heart rather than from from the mind. So, how
Mm.
was this experience of writing poems and coordinating with someone across virtually and coming out with a book and the whole experience of it?
Yeah, I started scribbling actually. I did not know that poetry would be a part of it. There was a friend of mine who used to share his poems, and then I thought I could, if I changed a particular word, that would make a different, it would refine the entire experience. So that way, when I was doing, I'm grateful to him that he suggested that I should also try writing. And I laughed it off. I said, I have never written a single word that way. But he insisted that I begin writing, and that way I'm grateful to him. And then COVID came, and when COVID happened, I and one of my senior colleagues, then my teacher, who was working with me in the department, both of us thought that we should, start writing it, because we were sharing, exchanging. He used to exchange his verses, and so we did it that way. And even now, when I write, I ask approval from sir. So, sir, we sort of decided that we will write one poem a day. So at times it happened that it would become 3 to 4 poems also a day, or there were days where there would be no poem at all. And then we happened to, connect over WhatsApp, and then this whole thing, because we were very laid back, and even now I am a laid back person, and sir is also. Had it not been for you, we would have never come up with this idea of a book. Basically, I'm a very lazy person. So that way, we ended up writing poems. Then, because you insisted that we get it published, so we got into that, and eventually it got published. Yeah, and poetry is a very intimate, private expression, I think. And the way things and the way experiences of life shapes your cognition of your condition, and how do you reflect upon it. Because when you say pain will have different dimensions. Like how you have understood pain would be very different from my understanding of pain, and it would
Mm-hmm.
differ from person to person, maybe. And I think there were people. I got a very good remark regarding a particular poem. I had shared it with my young junior colleagues, both women. And when I wrote a particular poem with a particular context in mind, it came as a surprise to me that this colleague of mine, who had recently then lost her father, said that this poem reminded her of her father. But the same poem, which was again shared with another young person in Kerala, he said that it was wonderful because it reminded him of something else. So, it is the reader's assessment actually that would perhaps lend it more value. Otherwise, whatever comes to my mind, maybe I try to put it down in words. And that is how it is. But the book really happened because you insisted. It would have never been a part of
I was
my
very
existence.
pushy.
Yeah, of course.
I was very pushy, but I think that led to a good thing, something
Mm.
which will
Yeah,
which will
yeah,
leave
of
as a
course.
legacy even after we pass on. So I think so. I have to keep pushing.
Yeah.
Uh, so
I
I
told
think
you
you are
it will be
absolutely
easy.
right. I mean, pain is a perception, uh,
Mm,
but the suffering is
mm,
entirely different for every person. So how much they
mm,
suffer for that kind of pain
mm,
can be very, very subjective. But I think it is also important that people do have an understanding of pain and sorrow and empathy and those sort of emotions to be able to find the real person inside them, the real
mm,
human being. Otherwise, life can be very superficial. And
mm,
as we know from our own stories, I mean, once you've gone through certain things, then
mm,
all many other things which matter to many people, they all become, uh, I would say, much less important.
mm.
So when you realize the the importance of life, when you realize, I mean, sometimes I think it is important to be in a bit of darkness to understand the value of light. So it's a
Yeah,
similar sort
exactly.
of thing. And
Mm,
sometimes by the time we realize the value of something, it is only after we have lost. So
mm,
I always say, don't come to my grave with flowers. Bring them to me even before, if you wish to, so that I can
mm,
actually smell their scent.
yeah.
So tell us something about Mary Baruah that the world doesn't know.
First of all, I don't think the world should know me because there's nothing that, that is so distinctive that, the world should know about me. Uh,
Oh, something interesting.
I don't know, like, what can it be? Something interesting about me? Uh, I don't know. My daughter is smiling at me
If your daughter
because
is there, so next to you, she might be able to say something interesting about you.
my son says that I am a very, I am a very finicky person. That is other people's observation. That would give you an idea. I am a very, very strict disciplinarian, and I
Hmm.
always go by. A while ago, my daughter was saying, "Why do you stick to time so much?" I don't know. Like it has been a part of my, regimen, if it may be. Like I
I
need to
think
keep
because
that.
you are doing so many things and there are only certain number of hours in the day, so it is important to make sure that you are sticking to your time. Otherwise, you'll end up double booking yourself or being late for your meetings and stuff like that, and not being as productive as you can. Uh, I
Now,
personally think that I think you are like a coconut. So
oh,
maybe that's something people don't know about you. So you are very firm from outside, but very soft from inside, soft-hearted. So that is something I can say as a friend, and I think that that is
yeah, that is
that is a
your,
great thing.
I don't know, like, but I can tell you that I'm very spiritual person that way. Spiritual, not in terms of, established religion, but spiritual because I think that if you do some wrong, that the repercussions will definitely be there. And, wrong doesn't mean that, you are doing wrong in terms of conventions and traditions or something. Whatever at a certain point of time, whatever needs to be done as a human being, if I don't do that, it would be wrong. That is wrong for me. Wrong isn't like, you always obey your elders and you don't say anything, you don't question. Uh, those things do not sort of affect me that way. But if I need to question, I will question. If I need to argue, I will argue. If I need to resist, I will resist. If I feel that, okay, at the end of it, this resistance or this argument is not worth certain things that I need to protect, then I will give up also. It's some way, maybe that is how I survive, sort of, maybe. But I don't easily forget. That is also something which is, I don't know how if I may say, that is positive or negative. I don't forget very easily uh, things
I
that
think
have
that's
happened.
a positive, because I think forgiving someone is important,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
that's a part of your
Moving
own
on is
healing.
important.
But
Yeah.
when people say forgive and forget, I don't believe in that myself. I think you should forgive, but you should not forget, because otherwise you'll end up doing the same wrong once again. So that takes us very nicely into as a subject for our next discussion, which would be on the spirituality in daily life, and a few other things. So last question is,
Mm,
we all know hindsight is a great thing. So
mm,
if you have to roll the years back
mm,
to any point, you want to reset at any point in time,
mm.
is there anything you would have done differently, and if so, what?
Uh, this is a very, sort of impractical question, I feel.
It's
Because,
true. Yeah.
yeah, because I
But the
don't know
reason
how.
I asked you is that maybe somebody
Mhm.
who is going to follow a similar journey to yours, what could they prevent, or what should they do differently?
Uh, yeah, they maybe sort of say, because one is at a certain age. With age, you acquire your experience, and then your decisions are affected by your experience. So the person that I am now, I wasn't, say, when I was, say, 20-year-old or maybe 15-year-old girl. So at that point of time, to expect that I would have the wisdom of a 50-year-old woman, that is also very improbable. But as an individual, as a young person, maybe, or as somebody who is looking forward towards life, one needs to prioritize. With me, it was a different case because I can compartmentalize. It's something that I forgot to tell you. In the midst of a lot of chaos, if I need
Mhm.
to work on something, I will be able to work. I don't need
That
to
is a
exclude.
huge positive, actually. We need to talk more about that in the next.
I don't know. Somehow these things happen, like when these gurus who gave mantras nowadays for managing oneself and looking after taking care of yourself and all of that, picking up a hobby or something. I feel that I have done all of that, and that was somehow inbuilt into my system. Like when I go through a lot of pressure, I make pickles. I take up something, I find out something, and I start making pickles. Or say there is something which is very disturbing, then maybe I'll cook something. So you have an outlet, and by the time your work is done, that whole pressure, it just goes away without much of damage. And that way I come back to my work again. But maybe I'm really grateful to God that the fact that I can compartmentalize something that is disturbing at my workplace will not come over to my home. Something that is disturbing me inside my mind regarding my relationship would not be reflected upon how I am behaving with my children. Most of the time, largely, there
I
is
think
seldom a
that is really, really positive, and that is something for people to learn. And perhaps that is something we can help our students with, as well, as to how to compartmentalize our brain, or how to build this resilience, because this is all a part of your life skills as to how to survive
yeah.
different difficult situations.
Maybe my
So,
profession also helped me because, say, I had it's a difficult day at home. I have to go to the class and take a class. Now, there I cannot have a grumpy face and then, disclose that I had a problem. I couldn't prepare my lessons and, you please excuse me, or I show my anger on them. Those children do not have any fault, right? So I had
absolutely,
to
yeah.
be a positive, productive person inside the class. That way, maybe it is a training, perhaps. I didn't know all of that. Now
No,
that
that
I'm
is
looking.
that is very true. No, I can completely identify uh,
Hmm,
with that thing, because same with me as a doctor.
Mm,
However upset or tired
mm.
or negative I feel, but the
Yeah.
moment a patient walks across the door to me with an
Mm,
expectation that they would see the doctor in the best possible, with the best foot
exactly.
forward, or a
Mm,
person smiling and
mm,
welcoming to them, so I couldn't let them down, because
mhm.
at the end of the day, I am a doctor at that point. I may be
Yeah.
a son and a husband and a father or something else at different points with my own problems. But at
Mm,
that point, I had to fulfill that role. And as we have discussed before, we are basically all role players on the stage of this world.
mm.
So I think we are going to conclude uh, this today. It's been a very interesting discussion, and once again, I thank you for your
Thank
time. And I really hope that our viewers would have found this very useful, very insightful, and we will be talking about on different topics. I would also request for one of the sessions to talk with Mo, your daughter, because I
you.
know she has got wisdom beyond her age, so it'll be very nice uh, to have a chat with her on certain topics, especially related to children. Now,
Mm.
if you give consent, of course.
Of
But for
course.
today, ladies and gentlemen, we have had the privilege to talk to Dr. Merry Baruah, who is an associate professor of Cotton University in Guwahati, Assam, and my very good friend and co-author. And I'm looking forward to meeting her in London very soon, because she'll be coming over and we shall be presenting a paper together at the Winchester University and Royal College of Surgeons. So very soon we'll be talking again, and hopefully we can share some more wisdom. And I look forward to learning from you, like I do every time I speak. So thank you very much. So have a
You.
very good
Thank
evening.
you. Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.